Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have some more best friends to lovers romance book recommendations for you, so let's just get right into the books. So the first book for today's video is My Favorite Half Night Stand by Christina. This one follows a girl who is, I believe she's a professor, and she has like all these professor friends. This reminded me a lot of The Big Bang Theory. And they basically all decide that they're going to get dates. They're all guys except for her. And they basically decide they're all going to get dates to this event that they have every year. And one of the guys in particular, she seems to be like really good friends with. And they all sign up for dating apps and they sort of end up talking to each other and things go from there. This is actually really cool. I listened to the audiobook of this and I didn't realize I'm actually looking at this now. It's got these really cool sort of like text bubbles where like there's actually like little cartoon pictures of them, which is pretty cool in here. So I might actually recommend reading this like physically because that would be kind of cool, and I sort of missed that listening to the audiobook. But this one definitely sort of had the best friends to lovers arc where they, you know, had been hanging out together for a long time and were really close friends, and then things go from there, obviously. So I really enjoyed that one. Next is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. I feel like this is like the most common book for this trope right now. And this one is the second book to It Happened One Summer. You don't have to read that one first to read this, but if you're gonna read both, you should read that one first because you obviously sort of get like spoilers in this one from that one. But you could also just read this book on its own if the first one doesn't appeal to you. This one follows I believe it's the cousin or the sister. It's the sister from the first book. So Hannah meets Fox in the first book because her sister is dating his best friend. And so the two of them kind of get paired off together quite often when the other two are off on their own. So these two become like the best of friends, and she's now back in town working on a movie or TV show or something like that as part of her job. And so she returns to this tiny town, and he is obviously there because he lives there, and she ends up staying at his place because she doesn't really like plan ahead and just sort of ends up at his place. And he is like known as like the playboy of the town kind of thing, and everyone's sort of rooting for him not getting with her because they think she's too good for him, basically. But this one is a really, really sweet like best friends to lovers evolution. They're like definitely hardcore best friends in this one, and I love that just arc of, you know, them realizing like, oh hey, maybe this is more than friends. It's like probably one of my favorite tropes, to be honest, is best friends to lovers. So really love this one. I also just really, really love the cover of this one. Like everything about it is perfect to me. Really, really love that one. Next is When Sparks Fly by Helena. This is the first in a series of standalones about three sisters who all run this one like inn or resort type thing, I guess. And in this one you follow a girl who is actually living with her best friend who is a guy, and she sort of has this issue where she is scared of driving in the rain specifically, and far distances. She doesn't really do it all that well, and so she's planning to go to, I believe it's like a college reunion or something, and her best friend Declan, who is her roommate, says don't worry, like I'll drive, we'll go together, because they're both going to this thing anyway. So he's like, I'll drive, don't worry about it, and he ends up going out the night before and getting absolutely hammered, and then is like hungover the next morning obviously, and sort of sleeps through the time that they're supposed to leave. And she's like banging on his door and he's like, I can't get up and drive right now, like it's just not gonna happen. And she is super, super mad at him, and she's like, you know what, it's fine, like I can drive myself, I'm gonna like do it, like I don't need you kind of thing. And she gets in the car and ends up, it's raining that day, it's like everything that she could possibly not want to happen during this drive happens. She ends up in an accident, and he sort of blames himself for it because he was supposed to be driving her, and she wouldn't have been angry if it weren't for him, and she wouldn't have even been like on the road in that car at that time if it weren't for him. So he sort of says like, okay, I'll be the one to look after you because she can't walk. I think she breaks her leg or something in the accident, like she needs help around the house, and so he's like, I'll be the one that helps you, like no one else is gonna be responsible for this because this is my fault. And that's sort of where things sort of start taking a turn. There's definitely like jealousy in this book where, you know, one of them brings home someone and the other one's upset about it kind of thing. And it was just really, really cute. I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, it is the first in a series, and I just really enjoyed it. Helena Hunting's one of my favorite authors, so really loved this one as well. Next is Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy. I know this series as a whole gets a lot of flack. I thought Bad Girl Reputation was a decent bit better than Good Girl Complex, so I would give it a shot if you're like hesitant. But this one is a little bit different in that it's sort of like a friends to enemies to lovers kind of situation, I guess, where these two were best friends when they were teenagers, and in high school they did everything together until they eventually started dating. And then she ends up moving away for a year and is just like, no, I'm done with this. Like, I want to grow up and like be responsible and like do all these things. And she's sort of been like the bad girl of the town, I guess. Like, obviously the title tells you that, but this book's really interesting because it's not like good girl, bad boy or anything. It's like bad boy, bad girl, where they both were constantly like getting into trouble with each other and just like doing all these stupid things. And they were like known around the town for all these stupid things that they were doing. And she, like I said, reaches this point where she's like, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want to be like an adult. I want to be treated like an adult. And she goes off for a year to sort of do that. But now something has brought her back to the town, and obviously this guy is still here and he still wants her back. And so things sort of go from there. Like I said, they do have a really strong like friendship background, but there is a sort of falling out along the lines. But I think they're very quick to sort of pick it back up. They are still both aware that like even though they're not together, they are still really good friends. So this one I think is a really good one for this trope. Next is Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. You guys all know I have sort of mixed feelings on this series. I did like the Addicted series though. I will say that, like, I would just read the Addicted books and skip the Calloway Sister series, but that's just my personal opinion. But this one is definitely like hardcore best friends to lovers. They have been best friends basically their whole lives. They grew up together, constantly at each other's houses. They were just like inseparable. And then they start fake dating because obviously, if you've heard about this book, they are both addicts. Lo, the guy in this book, is an alcoholic, and Lily is a sex addict. And so they sort of fake date so that their families get off their backs. They're not wondering, you know, where they're out or what they're doing kind of thing. And so this helps them sort of hide it from them, and they live together because everyone thinks they're together, so why not? And it's very much like best friends to lovers because obviously eventually the fake dating sort of turns into something else. But I did really enjoy this book. Like I said, I have mixed feelings on the series as a whole, but this book in particular I did really enjoy, and it definitely falls into this category. So if you're looking to start like a longer series that's got like a best friends to lovers evolution, I think this is a really good one for that. Next is Shame by Fiona Cole. This one I feel like I heard so much like controversial talk about this book before I picked it up, which is kind of why I picked it up, because everybody just seemed to be like bashing this book and talking about how it was like inappropriate and different things. But like, I sort of get where they're coming from, but also not really, because if you actually read the book, it's not really like that. This book deals with two high schoolers who basically start exploring kinks together, and obviously that's like something that a lot of people had issues with. I personally think that it's not a big deal because they're 17 at the start of the book, and then there's like a 5-year time jump, I think. So it's not like they're 17 the whole book, and they're not doing anything particularly outrageous either. Like, a lot of people made it sound like they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff that like teenagers like could never be doing, and it's just like not that big a deal, I don't think, in this book. And in this one, they're also neighbors, which I really love when it's like best friends to lovers, that they like grew up side by side kind of thing. And so I did enjoy this one. Like I said, I didn't really think that the controversy was warranted. I think if you've heard things about this book, just kind of ignore it, because I personally don't think it's very relevant, and I did think the book was good. Next is From the Jump by Lacie Waldon. This is a book about a girl who is kind of always put her career first. She always says no to like doing anything fun basically in favor of working more hours, thinking she's going to work her way up in this business that she's working in. And one day she kind of realizes, like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting all of this effort into this business that doesn't even care about me? They're not, you know, promoting me as fast as I want to be. Like, I'm missing out on my life because I'm pouring everything into this job. And she decides, like, screw it, I'm going to Africa with my friends, because all of her friends have gone on this trip to South Africa. And her friends go on this trip every year, not to South Africa specifically, but they go somewhere every year. And she always turns them down, but she decides, like, nope, this time I'm going. Like, I'm leaving work, I'm gonna go on this trip. And she goes, and because she decides, like, at the last second, like, her friends are already in Africa when she decides to go, And so she flies in later. So because of that, she can't really get like a room in the same hotels they're in, and she's like trying to rent these like different places, and this one guy is like, girl, you gotta just like give it up, like just share my tent basically. And it sort of goes from there. She's like always been really close with this one guy, and they definitely have like a really strong like best friend vibe. Like it's sort of like that you can tell that the two of them have always been closer out of this group of friends, and things finally start moving with that. Obviously, I really enjoyed this one. I like this author's books because they all have like sort of a travel aspect to them, which I think is really interesting. She's actually a flight attendant, the author, so I find her books about travel are pretty interesting because they are most likely more like first-hand travel experiences, so I think that's really cool. Next is Home Game by Odette Stone. This is part of her hockey series. This I think is the second book in the series, I want to say. I may be wrong on that. But this one follows a guy who is a hockey player, obviously, and he ends up in this coffee shop trying to sort out his receipts for his taxes, and he's just having a really, really rough time. And this girl is like, hey, you're doing this wrong, you need to do this. Because she's sort of, like, he's caught her eye, and she notices he's doing it wrong, so she's like, this is what you want to do, like, this goes here, this goes there. And he's like, oh my gosh, like, thanks, like, can you help me with this? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And she's like, fine, I can help you for like 20 minutes. So she sits, and they're talking, and then she realizes that it is past 8 o'clock, and she flips out, and she's like, I gotta get out of here right now. And he's like, whoa, what just happened? Like, we were fine, and now you're like freaking out. And he's like, let me drive you wherever you need to go. So he drives her, and it ends up he is dropping her off in front of a homeless shelter, and she runs up, and they turn her away because they don't let people come in after 8 o'clock. Like, that's when the cutoff time is. And so she starts walking down the street thinking she's gonna go sleep in a diner overnight because she is homeless, and this guy is watching her, and he is kind of thinking to himself, like, what is she doing? You know, why is she like leaving? Like, didn't she just try to get in there, like, sort of thing? And so he goes over to her and he asks her like what just happened, and she explains everything to him, and he's like, okay, come stay with me. And she's like, no, like, I'm not doing that, and like, I'm definitely not sleeping with you. And he's like, no, I don't want you to sleep with me, like, literally just come stay at my place, and like, I'll stay away from you, basically. And that's sort of how the story starts, and I feel like it did a really good job of like them building up a friendship before anything happened. And I just thought he was really sweet in this book. Like, he just genuinely wanted to look out for her. He wasn't trying to hook up with her or anything like that, and didn't want her to think that, and was just very sort of careful around her at the beginning of the book. And I personally just thought this was really sweet, and he was so nice and just like genuinely concerned about her, and they become really good friends before they start becoming more. Next is Lovelight Farms by BK Borison, and I feel like this is like one of those books that's been around everywhere this month for, I guess, like Christmassy reads. This cover looks very Christmassy, but it's not really. It follows a girl who runs a Christmas tree farm, which obviously is kind of festive, but that's like the extent of the festivities in this book. And she basically writes into this influencer saying that she's running this tree farm and blah blah blah, and she's trying to win this contest where this influencer will come and do a feature on the farm. And she knows this influencer loves like romantic storylines, whatever, so she says that she's running this farm with her boyfriend, and she doesn't have a boyfriend. So this influencer says like, yeah, okay, like, I'm gonna come to town on like these dates. So for her entry, she's gonna come to see this farm, to see what it's like and just experience it firsthand. And this girl kind of panics, like, oh my god, I don't have a boyfriend. I told her I had a boyfriend. So her and her best friend start fake dating, and the whole town is kind of excited about it because they're like, oh my gosh, these two finally got together. Like, they've been best friends forever. This should have been what happened all along, and it just wasn't. And now it's finally happening, and so everyone's all excited, but they're also like, okay, something fishy's going on here. And this one was cute. Like I said, thought it was going to be more Christmassy than it was, so if you like something that's like a little bit Christmassy but not really, you will probably like this one, and it does have best friends to lovers in it. And lastly is The Hardest Fall by Elle and Maise. This is a football romance, obviously. This follows a football player who sort of accidentally ends up moving in with this girl. His coach offers him this apartment, and he doesn't mention that there is a girl living in it already when he offers it to him. And so he shows up, and this girl is living there, and they've already kind of met, so she knows who he is and he knows who she is, but like not really. And so they end up living together, and she's just like, nope, we're gonna be besties. And he's like, no, I'm gonna bet money that you're gonna want to kiss me. And she's like, nope, we're best buds, like best buds. And they make several jokes throughout the book about them being best buds, and I feel like they really do become best friends throughout the course of this before anything else happens. And I did really enjoy this one. It is a college romance, and I just thought it was really cute, and I really love these specific editions of this book. This is the new cover. I'm kind of obsessed with it. And again, this was a really good best friends to lovers. Really enjoyed that. And so that is everything for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I will see you next time.